Melissa, Facebook has sent a letter to George Soros' Open Society Foundation, the letter backing Sheryl Sandberg's handling of research into Soros, saying she was being truthful when she said she didn't know that Facebook had hired definers to explore Soros' criticisms of the company. We have here a copy of the letter addressing President of Open Society Foundation, Patrick Gaspard. It's written by Facebook's general counsel, Colin Stretch, on behalf of the company's board. He writes, "We take issues with several points you raise, saying that Sandberg's question into whether Soros had shorted Facebook stock was, quote, entirely appropriate given her role as COO. The letter also notes that Facebook has, quote, repeatedly and publicly taken responsibility for our failure to identify and respond to this threat sooner, responding to referencing Russian manipulation of the election. They note that they've created an independent election council, and they're saying that it's not fair to say that Facebook has, quote, failed to take responsibility. Stretch responding to criticisms by Gaspard of the Open Society Foundation, saying that they do believe that Facebook's services help people. So really refuting many of those attacks. You see Facebook shares now down over 2%. Melissa, back over to you.
Julia, did you read this as a defense of Sheryl Sandberg in that you think the board stands behind her as COO?
Well, it certainly appears so in this letter, Melissa. I mean, this was a specific defense of Sandberg when it came to that issue of definers. Sandberg has faced so much criticism recently for how this whole issue of definers went down. This was a firm that was hired by people who were under her, under the communications team, that was used to share information about George Soros and attack Facebook's critics. The issue here is that she said she didn't know anything specific about the hiring of definers. Then it came out that she actually had asked her team to look into whether Soros had shorted Facebook shares. So there was this sort of back and forth. Did she know, and was she unclear about that? Did she not know? What they're trying to say here is that while she did ask her staff to look into whether or not Soros had shorted Facebook, that was appropriate and that was separate from the firm that was already doing this work on Soros and his organization.
All right, Julia, thank you. Julia Borson in Los Angeles for us. Here's a question for you guys here.
Okay.
Facebook stock has not traded too well, I would say, this year. I think that's being generous, right? That'd be fair. Let's say you get a headline tomorrow morning. Sheryl Sandberg is out as COO. How does the stock trade, Pete?
I would think people would be very nervous about that. I think everybody, when they look at Facebook, you look at the two names that stand out, obviously Zuckerberg and Sandberg. And so I think that would knock people down. Now, eventually, in the long run, does that actually maybe work for them? Maybe. But I think in the short term, the sellers come out easily to push this down at least 10, 15%.
Well, I think change is needed there, and I think the market has, on some level, already pushed somebody out. But I think there are trust issues. And let's be clear, my opinion, the company hasn't really acknowledged or taken any of the blame for a lot of the things that have happened in the past. And they can't acknowledge the future. They can't even identify some of the costs and some of the services to their business and the impact that they will have. That's the problem. That's why it's a cheap multiple. That's why it will stay a cheap multiple.
I mean, I sort of could have guessed what Tim was going to say, given all the op-ed
activity
that he has penned. But I pose the same question to you, Guy, because if the problem is a perception, even just a perception, let's say that there's not even a real problem of corporate governance.
Pete said 10 to 15%. They could shift back to 125. I mean, that's probably exactly right. And, you know, sports, you like sports sort of analogies.
Love sports analogies.
We got some time today because we're going to like 7 o'clock tonight. So, but I'm going to use, you know, Facebook for years was playing offense, and they were doing it extraordinarily well.
Playing offense.
Now they're forced to play defense, and that is very difficult in this environment because everybody's coming after them. So Tim's been on this for a while.
Yeah.
How do you buy the stock? I thought last quarter when they reported on Halloween, I thought that quarter and the comments they made was good enough to have put in the bottom, and for about a day and a half it looked that way, and here we are right back down. So to answer your question, I think 125 handle.
And Dan, what quarter are we in the Facebook business in terms of their issues as it relates to trust and governance?
She asked the questions around here, all right? So I'm going to answer the one that she gave me.
I mean, am I here? Did I have to come in today?
So the question was, if Sandberg's out.
I want to keep the metaphors going,
I thought, Pete, your initial reaction is a good one. I think it would signify that there's some bigger issues here. I think one thing that's really important for them is to keep this stuff kind of compartmentalized before we see what the governments are going to do. And I think it's also really important to remember, it wasn't more than maybe a year ago ago, where her name was being bandied around as maybe a replacement to Bob Iger, or when Uber needed a new CEO or something like that. And, you know, it's really a shame. I just feel like because she probably is a rock star CEO sort of candidate, but that's on the back burner for now.